Hello, welcome to a new video. My name is Syamantak and welcome to my channel. So most of the people who are watching this, you probably spend a lot of time watching tech videos on YouTube, and if you do so, you probably know Mr. Lewis, the man behind Unbox Therapy, the channel, and he also has his podcast, Lew Later, and there was this episode called India Plans to Build iOS and Android Competitor. Now, and it's a small segment where they talk about this topic in the entire podcast. So, I am an Indian, and I have listened to the podcast, actually even watched it on YouTube multiple times, like 2 or 3 times, and felt that I should make a video about it because I think because I'm an Indian and I'm also interested in technology, whatever Mr. Lewis is saying in the podcast, I could add more context, add more information, more thoughts, and also answer a few questions he has asked in this podcast. So I think it would be quite a great video, and it would be great if Mr. Lewis himself gets to watch this. Let's hope he also gets to watch this video. And also I'll be pausing quite a lot in this video, across the entire podcast. So it is recommended to check out the original podcast, and also whatever I'm listening to, like this podcast, like whatever I'm watching, all the credit goes to Lew Later and the channel and everybody working behind it. I'm just doing the reaction and opinion sharing. So with these things in mind, let's not talk too much. Let's start the video.
India is planning homegrown operating system to rival iOS and Android. That's some ambitious goals right there.
It is ambitious, and you know why. Like, everybody knows. iOS, Android. Both these operating systems have their own ecosystem. Both these operating systems. So, iOS or Apple in general have a more closed ecosystem, and Android has a more open ecosystem, but it's still an ecosystem. People are used to how things work. So when a third operating system is coming, things get a little bit complicated, like shifting from different operating systems. You get used to when you use an operating system, and then shifting to something that is completely new, it's a huge challenge. So therefore, it's really ambitious.
To rival only the two most successful operating systems ever.
Yeah.
Sounds fun. I'd like to check it out.
I didn't even know where to start. The Indian government is planning to incentivize the creation of an indigenous mobile operating system to rival iOS and Android. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has announced via the Economic Times. The proposal announced on Monday by Minister of State for Electronics and IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, will encourage the technology industry to create a homegrown Indian mobile OS, explicitly intended to create an alternative to iOS and Android in India. So this is part of this move from the top down to have homegrown alternatives in general, whether it be social media or, in this case, an entire operating system.
Yes. In India in general, we have a lot of Android phones, more than iOS. And in Android, you have WhatsApp. That's the dominant messaging app, WhatsApp. And I think I've seen this somewhere, like there is this alternatives. I think it's an Indian alternative of WhatsApp. If it's WhatsApp or some, I might be wrong anyway. So in general, there are multiple apps that are like Indian versions of these things. Not saying like of different apps, like not saying that it's like the exact copy of these apps. No, this is just like a different option, a different Indian option. That's all. It's like not exact copies most of the time. So there are like developers and companies that have app competitors, if you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
However, this one specifically, this isn't any one app. This is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Could it?
So here's why switching from an app, like moving from app, is easier than moving from an entire operating system. In app, it's a small environment. It's a small environment, and it's very small things that you get used to. So you can switch. It takes less time to learn, but an operating system is more vast. And therefore, when you want to switch, it gets a little bit hard. You know what I'm trying to say.
Even from the ground up, approach such a thing at this point, because you think of interoperability, you think of app stores.
Yeah. Is it going to run Android apps still?
I think it has to run Android apps. It's supposed to run Android apps in some way or the other. It has to run. Or else, in an Android dominant country, if you're trying to present something that does not run Android apps, that's some really, really tough situation that you're getting into.
Project fits in with Prime Minister Modi's aim to create domestic leaders across multiple industries and product categories, as well as bolster the country's technology industry. The Indian government has unveiled a roadmap to achieve $300 billion worth of electronics manufacturing in the country. Well, that has been going on.
Yeah, it has been going on, and I opened some Indian news channel that day, and there's a lot of talking about it in the news as well, in the Indian news channels that we have here. And we've been like making a lot of progress in technology in like at this time. Like we have a lot of goals, and there's a lot of things that are happening in India in terms of in the field of technology. And I think this operating system thing is actually part of this all over general, like this development that has been happening. So I think this is part of that.
Yeah, if they're truly trying to have a ground up operating system, then it's going to be very, very expensive for one.
Yes.
And there's going to need to be incentives across the board for developers of the apps that are going to run in such places. And that will be comparable to the alternatives, because they're not going to shut off the tap to the other devices that are available. Now, it's important to note that this particular incentive would probably have a bigger impact on Android than iOS, because
it's a dominant one.
In the country are Android devices.
Yeah.
However, like I said, it's very ambitious. That's what I would say. If anybody asks my opinion, and they are not asking my opinion, and they do have billions of dollars, but I would say this is a very ambitious task here.
Yeah.
Can we scan Android, please? Sir, would it be all right for me to like start with Android as a base and throw some government skins on it?
Like, if you think it in that way, it might be logical to do it that way, because people are used to using Android. Android looks a certain way. Android works a certain way. Or iOS works in just a little bit different way. So when most of the people are used to Android, I don't think so making something that looks absolutely different than Android would be a very good idea. I think there should be small similarities that brings that familiarity in both the operating systems, so that if people want to switch, they don't have to think much. If a person wants to make a comfortable switch to a different operating system, like the Indian operating system, I think it should have some resemblance in terms of design.
I think that this, if they're going to build it from the ground up, it's going to be long term.
Absolutely.
And initially, it's probably going to be bare bones.
I guess at that point, if you've done such things, you might as well do the hardware too.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well have
probably.
government OS and government hardware. Now, this is a good point to actually ask locals there. Would you be at all interested in a government OS, government-funded OS, and government-funded hardware? I mean, it seems so strange, right?
Okay. I am an Indian and therefore I can answer this. We have seen a lot of government funded products. This is my honest opinions, by the way. We've seen a lot of government funded apps and services and this and that. For me personally, that's not the problem. But if you want to ask the rest of the public in India, you have to obviously run an entire survey and like see what people think. But personally, it's not a problem for me. Personally, the problem that I find is how like reliability. This is the point. I've seen people switching from Android to iOS, iOS to Android, and the switch isn't that hard. This is why, because the people who are switching, they know the reliability of Android or iOS because they have been there for a long time. But I'll call it India OS. But India OS, when it will come out, it's absolutely new. Nobody knows how stable, how reliable, how things work. They cannot trust something that's so new. But iOS and Android have been there for a long period of time. And therefore, switching into something that there's uncertainty, it's going to take a long period of time for people to get used to this. The fact that this, like, even if it's reliable, it's going to be a huge process, like, to convince people, like, this is stable. It's going to be a long time, like a long process to convince people about this. Yeah, moving on.
Especially in this era where it's so competitive. There's so many smartphone brands competing for your money and aggressively. Mm-hmm. Increasingly, you're getting more for less with a lot of brands, particularly in India. You have a ton of selection. It's hard to imagine how this proposition would be seen as superior. Even if you had tremendous pride in you and you loved the idea of homegrown talent and homegrown products, still it's hard to imagine that it could be competitive without.
I asked a few people, like not people, like my classmates in school, regarding this. They were happy that like India is taking steps like this, but they were very much attached to Android and therefore they did not want to make a switch. So I think number one, if they want to make this something a good competitor, number one, it has to be stable, it has to be reliable, it has to be a good operating system. Number two, proper execution is supposed to be done. And number three, it's supposed to run Android apps. There should be proper execution, and then only things will work fine. That's what I think.
Bleeding a tremendous amount of money to, or somehow punishing the other players who are trying to get their products into the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Tough one.
Yeah, that's the end of that portion. So, as you know, it was a great video, great to record, had a lot of fun. Complete credit goes to Lew Later, the channel, and like the podcast. Thanks for watching. I hope you see. I hope I see you in the next video. So, bye. Subscribe.